Mr. Speaker, I rise today to introduce as legislation President Trump's executive order for the most favored nation status on drug pricing. My legislation will codify President Trump's executive order, which basically says that Americans should not pay more for drugs than people in other countries and other parts of the world. Right now, we're paying 2 to 3 times more for our drugs than people in other industrialized nations. Now, this executive order, codified by the legislation, will allow our cabinet secretaries to put pressure on Big Pharma and make sure that they are not price gouging, and will allow for the importation of cheaper drugs. So you ask, why do we need the legislation? Because the reality is that Big Pharma will sue for the executive order like they did in the previous Trump administration. And in the previous administration, they managed to kill the executive order. The only way we can stand up to Big Pharma is to codify in legislation what the president wants to do in an executive order. So here's the deal. If I can cross the aisle and support President Trump's executive order in legislation, every Republican should be willing to cross the aisle and support my legislation. It's a pretty simple test. Are we going to stand in this body with the $16 billion that Big Pharma spent on lobbying, or are we going to stand with the American people? We will know that answer based on how many co-sponsors we get for my legislation that simply codifies Donald Trump's executive order.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so as you can see from that intro right there, yeah, that's a Democrat, by the way. That's Khanna. That's the one Democrat, the lone Democrat. There's a couple, though, that are actually not Trump deranged, that actually have a little bit of common sense rattling around up in their head. And, it's just fascinating. You realize they got criticized for that. They absolutely got criticized. They got thrown to the wind by the Democrats. They're making fun of Khanna for backing legislation that actually makes sense, or wanting to make up legislation that aligns with part of Donald Trump's agenda, as a matter of fact. This is just common sense stuff right here, right? And like that thing said, it got struck down in Donald Trump's first term. I don't happen to remember that. I wasn't really paying too close attention to politics back then, so it is what it is, but it makes sense, right? Donald Trump is doing stuff for the people, and there's some Democrats out there that can at least see that. What I find fascinating is how come there wasn't a Republican that brought this up, that built this legislation, that wrote this legislation up. How come Republicans haven't done that? There's another thing I want to know. All these DOJ cuts, how come that hasn't been codified into law? How come the shutting down the Department of Education hasn't been codified? How come anything that Donald Trump has been working his butt off doing, his agenda, his big agenda items, once again, all these cuts, canceling all these grants, all these executive orders, Donald Trump, how come none of this is going to the House floors? Because Republicans in Congress don't give a damn, folks. All they're worried about is fundraising for their next campaign, fundraising for the lobbyists, fundraising for anybody and everybody they can fundraise for. As a matter of fact, though, y'all make sure and stay tuned to my next video. Some fascinating stuff going on with that one, y'all. Really fascinating stuff. But let's get into today's video because, we got some interesting stuff. Once again, it's always interesting when it comes to Donald Trump. It is never a dull moment when Donald Trump is in office. That is for damn sure, and I believe everybody can agree to that. Let me know down in the comment section, but check this out, y'all. New militarized border zone spurs national security charges against hundreds of, wait for it, immigrants. Yeah, they're not immigrants, by the way. Let's get into this. This is fascinating, though. Donald Trump has expanded some of the military bases along the southern border and expanded these military zones. So now when these criminal aliens cross that border illegally, they get detained by the military and have to go through a magistrate judge, a military magistrate judge, and not one of these, activist federal judges that'll just let them go willy-nilly. This is a really good move. I don't know why Donald Trump didn't do this in his first term. Maybe he did, and I just, once again, didn't pay attention to politics, so I didn't know about this. But this is a really good move right here. Check this out, y'all. Several hundred criminal aliens, they say immigrants, have been charged with unauthorized access to newly designated militarized zone along the southern U.S. border in New Mexico and western Texas since the Department of Justice introduced the new approach in late April. President Donald Trump's administration has transferred oversight of a strip of land along the U.S.-Mexico border to the military while authorizing U.S. troops to temporarily detain immigrants in the country illegally, though there's no record of troops exercising that authority as U.S. Customs and Border Protection conducts arrests. No, I'm sorry. If anybody enters a military zone or a military base or anything like that, no, CBP isn't going to take care of that, you freaking idiots. Like, what are y'all thinking? That's military jurisdiction right there. Has nothing to do with CBP. Just because it's criminal aliens crossing into a military zone, like, so what? Like, what are they trying to argue here? See, this is what I can't stand about the corporate press. You know, instead of just giving you the news, they're trying to make the argument for you. Like, what are y'all doing here? Seriously, Associated Press. You guys should seriously be ashamed of yourselves. I'm not going to lie about that one. The designated national defense areas are overseen by U.S. Army commands out of Fort Bliss in the El Paso area in Texas, and Fort Huachoco, I guess that's how you pronounce that, in Arizona. The novel national security charges against immigrants who enter through those militarized zones carry a potential sentence of 18 months in prison on top of a possible 6-month sentence for illegal entry. Once again, they're not immigrants. I must stress this on every video I do that's about immigrants, folks. Think about it like this. Anytime you're out in the wild or anywhere, or you hear some news and they say illegal immigrants, that is a made-up term by the corporate press and Democrats to tug on your heartstrings. Like, oh, they just want a better life. No, I'm sorry. That is not the case. If they wanted a better life, they would have come to a port of entry and asked to enter our country, asked for a visa, or asked for some kind of green card, something like that, to enter the country legally so they could come in, set up shop, and go about the business of maintaining themselves, right? Get a job, build a family, do whatever you got to do. That's building a new life, right? That's wanting to come here, the dreamers and all these other people, blah, 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 blah. That's what that is. People that circumvent the process by which you come into this country the legal way. These people don't care about, oh, they just want a better life. No, they don't care about that, folks. Otherwise, they would not have circumvented the process to become a citizen or to enter this country the legal way. These people are criminal aliens. They do not want a better life. They are here, once again, to mooch off of the government, because Democrats have allowed these people to mooch off the government by tugging on people's heartstrings and saying, oh, well, they're here right now, and oh, they can't get a job, blah, 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 they can't buy a house, all this other stuff. Oh, we need to give them food stamps. We need to give them spending money so they can survive. They shouldn't be here in the first place. They need to be deported. That's what that's intended to do, because it fluffs the numbers. It pads their numbers, essentially. This is why we have something called, that is totally invented by the United States, sanctuary cities. Right? And that's intentional, folks. That is all in a bid to gain more power. Because these people, the criminal aliens, it's kind of a long game strategy here. These criminal aliens get counted on the census. Right? And the census goes to delegate electoral power, in other words. That's what that is. That's where you get, the electoral college that decides who the president is going to be. Yeah, that's where those numbers come from, based upon people that live in a state. So if you call yourself a sanctuary city and then ask all these criminal aliens to come into your state and then count those people on the census, yet you're going to have more people counted toward that than you should. That is the sole reason why Democrats yell and scream and gnash their teeth. They bash their face against the wall when it comes to illegal immigration. This is why they call them, they're just illegal or irregular migrants or undocumented migrants. That's what they're calling them because, there's no human that's illegal. They don't care about these people at all. This is why these people were, once again, taking a dump on the floor and bashing their face into it when Donald Trump brought in 59 South African refugees. 59. Yeah, they took a dump on the floor and bashed their face on the wall because of that. They don't care about these people whatsoever. And there is legitimate evidence that these people were being persecuted simply due to their skin color, for goodness sakes. That is much more than you can say about a lot of these illegal immigrants that come into the country, right? Sure, that they may come from a really bad place, right? But at least they're not being persecuted because of their skin color, right? This is the hypocrisy of Democrats. It's just blatant hypocrisy. The full implications are unclear for migrants who pursue legal status through separate proceedings in federal immigration court. Once again, folks, those don't exist, right? These people that come into the country illegally, they are just here to mooch off of the government. That's all they're doing. That's all the intent. And Democrats want them here because that's why they can mooch off the government, because Democrats offer them food stamps. They offer them a universal basic income. Yeah, get that. Democrats are giving these people money on a monthly basis like a welfare check, right, for their daily needs while leaving you out to dry. That's what they're doing. Democrats will never do that, pass that legislation. Of course, Republicans will try to block it for sure because we're not socialists, folks. We don't want socialism. We don't want anything near that because that's ridiculous. It disincentivizes work. And if you don't have a good labor force, folks, you don't have a country. That would absolutely destroy the workforce. Universal basic income. That's ridiculous, folks. The Trump administration is seeking to accelerate mass removals of criminal aliens in the country illegally and third country deportations, including Venezuelans sent to El Salvador prison amid accusations of gang affiliation. The administration has deployed thousands of troops to the border, while arrests have plunged to the lowest levels since the mid-1960s. That's absurd. The Federal Public Defender's Office in Las Cruces indicates that roughly 400 cases have been filed in criminal courts there as of Tuesday, as it seeks dismissal of the misdemeanor and petty misdemeanor charges for violating security regulations and entering restricted military property. Yeah, there's actually lawyers defending these people, which is absurd. Really is. Court records show that federal prosecutors in Texas, where a national defense area extends about 60 miles from El Paso to Fort Hancock, last week began filing the military security charges as well. Filing the military security charges. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes I get those mixed up because filling and filing looks the same when you're reading it, when you're reading the little tiny letters, so I apologize for that. Las Cruces-based federal magistrate Judge Gregory Warmoth is asking for input from federal prosecutors and public defense attorneys on the standard of proof for the trespassing charges, given the unprecedented nature of prosecuting such offenses in this factual context. Public defenders say there needs to be proof that immigrants knew of the military restrictions and acted in defiance of that regulation for some nefarious or bad purpose. Hang on. Is that the legal standard for anything else, right? Once again, folks, Democrats don't care about your feelings. They don't care about you whatsoever. They just care about padding the numbers to get more power, right? Is this, once again, we do not live in a free country if laws are not applied equally. And what these people are arguing for is a civil right, I guess, or a privilege that you do not have. If you enter a military base, right, Just say it's for fun. Just because it was a dare. You go and enter a military base illegally, right? And go running around. You don't damage nothing. You don't harm anybody. And you get caught. Do you think that you're not going to be charged? Do you think they're just going to drop the charges because you said, oh, I was just on a joy run. I was just having fun. It was a dare. Sorry. Do you think they're going to just let you go? That's what they're asking for these people who entered the country illegally and then entered a military zone illegally. Once again, folks, if laws are not applied equally all the way across the board, we do not live in a free country. And these people are asking for a privilege that you would not ask for. These defense attorneys would not even think to ask for that in court if you were to do the exact same thing. That would get laughed at, as a matter of fact. But they have no problem asking this judge to do it because it's criminal aliens. It's insane, y'all. It really is. And this is why I cannot support Democrats whatsoever. New Mexico-based U.S. Attorney Ryan Ellison, appointed in April, says hundreds of restricted area signs have been posted in Spanish and English to warn that entry is prohibited by the Department of Defense along New Mexico's nearly 180-mile stretch of border. In a court filings, guess that's a typo, Ellison has said there's no danger of ensnaring innocent people when it comes to immigrants who avoid ports of entry to cross the border in willful violation of federal law and now military regulations. Yeah, that's right. He's kind of right about that, but he's wrong in the language. These people are criminal aliens. They are not immigrants. They are not looking for a better life. Once again, you don't start off your search for a better life by breaking laws. I'm sorry. That is just not how reality works. ACLU attorney Rebecca Sheff said basic freedoms are at risk as the government flexes its power at the border and restricts civilian access. That's an ACLU lawyer, by the way. Did you happen to notice something wrong with that argument? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you did. I'll read it once again, and you guys let me know down in the comments if you can figure out exactly what's wrong with this. ACLU attorney Rebecca Sheff said basic freedoms are at risk as the government flexes its power at the border and restricts civilian access. Let me know down in the comments. The extension of military bases, it's a serious restriction. It's a serious impact on families that live in the border area, she said. You find a problem with that? Like, does anybody find a problem with that? Right? That's not an argument. That is not a legal argument, by the way. There is no legal argument there. That is tugging on heartstrings. I cannot believe that a lawyer that went through law school and practices law for a living would actually make a statement like that as a legal argument. That's not even a legal argument. Once again, that's an emotional argument that has no basis in law at all. Plus, it's ridiculous. What are you even talking about? Restricting civilian? So should military bases even exist at all? Once again, where's the military supposed to practice? That's an argument against the military bases, essentially. The Department of Justice has warned Warmuth against issuing an advisory opinion on legal standards for trespassing in the military area. I wonder why that is. The New Mexico National Defense Area is a crucial installation necessary to strengthen the authority of service members to help secure our borders and safeguard the country, Ellison said in a court briefing. Democratic U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico expressed concern Wednesday in a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth that anyone may be stopped and detained by U.S. Army soldiers for entering a 170 square mile area along the border previously overseen by the Department of Interior and frequently used for recreation and livestock ranching. So what? There's signs posted. Who cares? Get over it, by the way. Hegseth has emphasizing a hardline approach to enforcement. You mean Hegseth is emphasizing a hardline approach to enforcement? Let me be clear. If you cross into the national defense area, you will be charged to the fullest extent of the law, he said in a post on the social media platform X. That is right, folks. These Democrats, they're losing their freaking minds with Donald Trump. Once again, this is why I use the kind of a euphemism, if you will, of every time Democrats hear Donald Trump, they take a dump on the floor and just smash their face into it. And then black out for a second, I guess, because then they're like, what happened? They're making emotional arguments in the court of law as if that's a legal argument. Like, you can't do that. They're going to get laughed at. That is a ridiculous idea to come up with, thinking that you can just tug on some heartstrings over here and has some sort of basis in law. Like, these people are just nuts, y'all. It really does blow my freaking mind, right? If there's signs posted and these people enter, I'm sorry. Once again, you have to ask yourself the question. If you, as an American citizen, born and raised here, natural citizen, not naturalized, natural born citizen, if you were to enter a restricted zone that was restricted by the military, do you think that would be an argument? People's freedoms are being restricted over here. Oh, this is tough on families. Like, how is it tough on families? How are people's freedoms being restricted? Like, would they just let you go? I just don't get why we should treat these people with kid gloves as if they're some sort of upper class of human or something like that. Why do these people deserve more rights than what you and I get? That never makes any sense to me, why Democrats are constantly advocating for people to have more rights than other people, like transgender people, right? Because they're always talking about trans rights, but they never spell out what those rights are, as a matter of fact, right? They say, oh, well, they're being denied existence. No, nobody's denying their existence. Nobody at all. We're just saying that they have a mental issue and they need help. They don't need affirmation. Just like these people need to be sent back home. They are clearly lost and don't know where they're at, right? And in the good graces of the Trump administration, he is doing them a solid by giving them a ride home. And Democrats are mad about that. I'm sorry. Like, seriously, I'll bring it back to this once again. If somebody breaks into your house, are you just going to let them stay there because, oh, maybe they're down on their luck, or maybe they lost their house, or, maybe they just left their house because it was a hole and they didn't want to live there anymore. So, no, they like your house. Let's move into your house. Are you just going to let them stay there? Do you think that if you call the cops, you get on the phone with them and tell them what happened, they should say that, oh, well, hang on, we got to contact the immigration judge over here and work all this out? No, they can't go anywhere until an immigration judge says that, they have the right to stay in your house, or if they should leave your house. That is what is going on with this. And that is not even to mention, once again, that Democrats are doing this to bolster their power in the Electoral College and in Congress, because this goes towards congressional seats as well. This is why conservatives are so hawkish on the border and so hawkish with deportations, as a matter of fact, because Democrats are cheating the system, except none of the squishy Republicans will get out there and actually say it. There's a few, I'm not going to lie, there's a couple that will say that. But it's absolutely freaking true. And they know it. Democrats know it. The corporate press knows it. The corporate press knows that these people are not just looking for a better life. They know exactly what they're doing. It's all about public perception of what is going on with Donald Trump, what is going on with the southern border. They know that that's where their power derives from. So they need to change your mind. They need to make you think that, oh, these people, they just want a better life. They're just citizens. They're irregular citizens. I've even heard that term before. Irregular citizen. Let me know if you've heard that term before, because what that does right there, if they can change the language to irregular citizen, you know what that's going to do? Oh, well, these citizens don't have the same rights as everybody else. Because they absolutely don't. They're not supposed to be here. They're criminal aliens. But they can make that argument, and then it sounds better with these irregular citizens over here are being denied their civil rights. And once again, it's public perception, y'all. It's all about public perception. And that's why I'm combating the corporate press narrative. And this is why you guys need to smash that like button for me. Seriously. I really need y'all's help on that. Smash the like button. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Subscribe to this channel if you want more news like that you're not going to hear from other places, because that's what I try to cover, is news that you're not hearing about from Fox or from any other podcast or anything like that. I try to cover news that's relevant but not very popular, if you will. So y'all make sure, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new around here, and look right below the video and there's a join button. Click that button, become a member, help me fight the corporate press narrative. Help me fight against this nonsense that the Democrats are trying to purvey onto you. They're trying to change your perception of reality. It's a giant psyop is what it is. So join the channel. There's perks. It's $5, $10, whatever you want to do. Just go ahead and click that button for me. If you don't mind, I would greatly appreciate that. And y'all try to have a good day. That's all I got on this one, y'all. Y'all let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section. And you guys, y'all stay legitical. Peace.